Hello and welcome to South Bay Sports Radio. Here's your host, Nick Ingram.
And we are back with another episode of South Bay Sports Radio. On today's episode, we've got a true South Bay success story from Carson to the center stage. He went from high school newspaper to hosting Lakers pregame and postgame shows for one of the NBA's most iconic franchises and traveling across North America covering championship boxing. Please welcome Mr. Beto Durán to South Bay Sports Radio.
Well, man, it's a pleasure. I've been following you and your journey, and I've known you for many, many years. About damn time, Nick. Where you been?
Hiding in the woods, being you know how it is with being a dad and trying to take care of business and working a 9 to 5, one day at a time.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Durán, let's begin with the early days. You were delivering newspapers back in the day, but when did you first realize sports journalism was actually something you could make a career out of?
Well, you say like legit South Bay. Yeah, I grew up in Carson, and I was in elementary. I was a paper boy for the Daily Breeze, the afternoon edition. So in elementary, I would get done, and then I would go to like a house where there was a bunch of other little paper boys, and I would have like 60 papers. It depended on the route that I had, but the one route that I do remember is right there where the 405 in Avalon is at. There was like a mobile home park, right? It used to be the old Don Cop Ford lot, and I would deliver 60 papers to the mobile home parks there every day after school. So I guess through osmosis, I learned how to read about sports and know about sports, and I would legit be the kid reading the paper before I would like fold them and deliver them. And I remember Wednesdays was a big heavy day because that's when all the advertisements came out. So instead of folding the paper in tries, you'd have to fold it in half. So Wednesdays were a bad day. But I would read the sports page, and then it would be Mike Waldner had a column. Mitch Chortkoff was covering the team, and Phil Collin, who ended up meeting years later, was also writing about that. That's when local prep sports and high school sports and the local scene was huge. I guess it was late 80s when I was doing that. So to fast forward, when did I realize I could work in this business? I didn't know until I was in my third year at El Camino Junior College, professional junior college student, and I took a class with Lori Medigovich at El Camino College. It was a journalism class, and the only reason I took it, Friday, 8 a.m., right? I'm 21. You think I want to go to class at Friday at 8 a.m.? No way. I was at Sharky's the night before. But I took a journalism class because it was the only way to stay on my dad's insurance. And I was supposed to have like shoulder surgery, so I needed to be on my dad's insurance. And that was a class that allowed me to stay as a full-time student. That's the only reason I took it. It was because there was nothing else available. And then it was mass media communications, and I took a journalism class with her. She's like, "You're a good writer." I was like, "I am." She's like, "Yeah, you write a good lead." I was like, "I do." Like, I've told the story many times. Like, I had no idea what it was because you didn't have any examples of anybody that looked like you or had the same last name as you that was actually doing anything in the media. And I'm not trying to say the woe is me, but it's just more of, that's why one of the things I preach a lot is representation matters. If you can actually see somebody that you know, or somebody that looks like you, or somebody with the same background as you that doing it, go for it. But in high school, I was the editor of school paper because that got me into the football games for free. Like I would write the stories, but it's basically I was just copying whatever the LA Times was doing or whatever the Breeze was doing or whatever, like reading all the years over Sports Illustrated. So through osmosis, all those years, I learned how to become a member of the media, I guess. But I was always a big sports fan, always watching everything, always know everything.
That sounds like me, Daily Breeze coming in at 4:00 and reading the newspaper is just one of those things, sitting in grandma and grandpa's kitchen, like, "Oh, Nicholas, how did the Dodgers do yesterday?"
Mhm.
And this is the time where you've got box scores, you've got every team, and then you've got what channel every team's on, so the sports page back then was a lot of fun to read. What are some of your earliest memories falling in love with sports, and how did that passion eventually push you toward telling stories instead of just watching the games?
Well, a big factor is my older brother, Gabriel. He worked at a park in Carson. So he worked at the Parks Rec Department in the city of Carson, which I ended up following the same thing. And I'm number 5 of 7. So I have 4 sisters. So my brother is 14 years older than me. He's the one who just recently retired as a principal. But because he worked at the park, the little brother would follow him to the park. So I would be at the park with him. So I remember having like t-ball practice and then just hanging around in the office, just being around and just being, they would say the park rat. So it was actually in Carson where the Target is at on Sepulveda, that little park, Carriage Crest. That's where I grew up at. The 110 in Sepulveda right there. So I grew up at that park, and I ended up working at that park. And so as far as like the love of sports, it was just my brother would get Sports Illustrated, and then he would order me Sports Illustrated for Kids, if you remember that magazine. Then my other brother, Alfredo, who passed away a few years ago, was also a big influence on me. I remember he took me to a Raiders Seattle game at the Coliseum, and it was raining, and just some of those memories. So I was always at events with my older brothers. So like whether they were taking me to a Dodger game, sitting in the reserve section or in the left field pavilion, whatever it was always there. So they would sign me up, and just typical. You play all the sports as a kid, and you come home and you're watching sports, and that's just what it was. My dad was a hardworking man he was a machinist, but then he was also at 3 a.m. delivering the newspaper for the LA Times, put him in the news rack. So he'd go do that before he'd go to work. So it really wasn't much time for my dad to be like, oh, let me show you games. It was let me provide for the 7 kids. So that's where like the siblings all stepped up, and like all our family were athletic. We're all into it, and we do the Torrance turkey trot as a family, stuff like that. So it's cool.
I'm gonna have to join you for that turkey shot one year, because that instead of sleeping in the one day that I do get to sleep in, maybe I'll get up and bring the boys out. You cover everything from boxing to basketball, football to baseball. When you walk into an event, what does your preparation look like no matter what the sport?
That's a good question right there, because I get asked that a lot when I speak to different colleges, and I always tell them like, we get to do the fun part. And actually just posted a TikTok the other day about being my time at an arena. So for example, tonight I'm working the Laker game. It's a 7:30 tip. I am the host of the pregame, halftime, and postgame, and I go on the air at 6 o'clock with Michael Thompson, who's fantastic. We do an hour and 15-minute pregame show. Right now it's 10 o'clock. I've been reading since 8 this morning. I read everything last night. One of the things that prepare is I read every single thing that's possibly out there. Am I going to use it all? No. I'm going to show up with about a couple pages of notes, and I'll probably use a tenth of that, because you just never know what's going on or where the conversation might go. But it's the one time you don't prepare where you're going to get burned. And that's also, it's fun. I mean, it's not like we're reading for school where you're like, what is this? It's, you want to know what's going on. And I always say, people ask me, what do you do? I say, I live in the dream. I get paid to read about sports, know about sports, and watch sports. And it's fantastic. So my preparation is constantly all day long, because now with the news cycle, now with social media, now you have to constantly be updated on everything else that's going on. Like, so from the moment you wake up, your mind is here. You got to be doing things. Non-game days, I don't do as much. That's where I do more about reading around the league. But it's just, I mean, what else am I going to do? This is awesome.
One of the things I did want to ask you, getting to spend time with Michael Thompson, he's one of those NBA legends who's traveled across the country, traveled across the world, played with some of the greatest players. But how fun is that relationship grown into you getting to joke with somebody like that, where maybe somebody like me a couple years ago would be starstruck?
Yeah. Michael's great. He's 70, and he will say everything that he is thinking. I'm 47, and some of his references go over my head. Like the other day, he said something about E.F. Hutton. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? But it's fun because working with him, but it's also a reminder that we're supposed to have fun. Michael reminds me all the time, like, this is supposed to be have fun. So the first season I worked with him, I was trying to do more like, not hardcore basketball breakdown. And he's like, hey, man, people are driving here. They just want to hear stories. They want to have fun. He's like, if you want to do hardcore analysis, that's cool, but I don't really care for that during the pregame show. He's like, let's talk about these guys, talk about their stories and who they are. So is it the traditional pregame show? No. Is it for everybody? No. Do I get a lot of people tell me, you don't know what you're talking about? Yeah. Could I hardcore break down the ATO and the horn set and the back doors? And this is absolutely. Is it fun? I mean, in this day and age of 2026, there's a podcast for everything that you could possibly have. But this is also, you got to know your audience. And we're on the ESPN radio. We have the people who are coming to games who are using it as their background noise, as they're driving their kids to whatever practice they're at, or they might be coming to the, whatever it is, with the background noise. And we try to have a lot of fun with it. And Michael's great. And then we go off on tangents every now and then. He'll like to throw some kind of Archie Bunker reference or something like that. And I've learned about Don Rickles with him, and it's great. It's great. But one of the things is he's just so easy to go with, and he won't talk about anything.
So like we said earlier, you're the pregame and postgame host for the Lakers broadcast and halftime. But when you step back and look at that journey, how surreal is it to be covering one of those franchises that you and I both grew up watching?
it's crazy because so I've been in the media since 2000 with my first ever internship. I've been around the Lakers organization in some capacity through ESPN since 2007-ish, somewhere around that time, where I was just kind of plugging around, but bouncing around. And then, a few years ago, I think maybe like 8, 9 years ago, ESPN Radio eliminated my position. So I wasn't around, but I was still in the mix. It was like, so it's just to come back full circle it's pretty cool, but it's about building relationships. And some of the people that you knew back then have now become like, whoa, you're somebody. Like that's what I always tell somebody, be nice to everybody. And that intern who's handing you a sheet of paper, you never know who they might become. So there's that old adage of be nice to everybody on the way up because you're going to see them on the way down. And one of those interns is Zach Kleinman, who is the GM or actually the president of the Memphis Grizzlies. He's in his 30s. He used to be a Laker intern and would ask me all kinds of questions. We sit next to each other. I'm like, you just never know, but it's always just be nice to everybody. Is it surreal? Absolutely. Walking, the ability to walk into crypto or Staples, I used to always call it, and nobody's in the building and nobody's stopping you. That's cool. Like that's why when we used to work Dodger games. Like you get there at 2:30 for a 7 o'clock game because it's just cool to see the stadium. And there's something about an empty stadium and knowing that you can be around it is awesome. And it's been a great journey, ups and downs. I always say this: the job is great. The behind the scenes stuff is absolutely BS. And if you can deal with that, and you deal with that, Nick, I mean, you deal with that. You and I've had these conversations about like we're in this business because it's a passion. We love what we do. We chose it, and we just got to deal. Not everybody's gonna be Stephen A. who's making $100 million, whatever. There's more you and me that are just grinding and doing this for the love of it.
And that's one of the reasons that I began this, is because there's a lot of people out there that there's a passion, and find something that you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be, going to a machine shop, but like Pops, you're providing for 7 kids. You've got to do what is going to put food on the table. I've got to go to, going to Trader Joe's tomorrow. I wake up at 4 o'clock, putting food on the table, making sure that you make ends meet. But at the same time, follow your dreams, follow your passion, because you never know. Be nice to everybody. You never know when that's going to knock down a door.
Well, that's the thing with me because I still do. I love doing play-by-play. I wish I could do more of it, whether it be football or basketball. But you just know that in this business, there's certain opportunities for some people, and there's something that you're going to get. I wish I would have known about play-by-play sooner in my life. That way I could be like Noah Eagle, who was like 15 years old. He's a prodigy, right? And I love Noah. He's great. Or Carlo Jimenez, who's the Clipper radio guy, who's like 25 years old, who I met when he was a freshman at USC. That's why I love doing the NFHS games, the high school games. Like the other day, I did that Jason Crow state record at Inglewood High. Like we get a couple bucks for gas, but it's a passion to go out there and do it and do those games. And people are like, I can't believe you're doing those games. You're so and so. Like, no, 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 no. Like you are never too good for anything. And if you really love doing it, you're gonna do it. Now, also I gotta understand like situation like NFHS, it's one camera, it's just a streaming for the family. That's it. Now, if we're doing a college game, they want to pay me that much, different story here. But it's you got to be where you're at and just enjoy every moment.
Agreed. All right, boxing time. You also work with Golden Boy Promotions. How different is it covering fighters and fight culture compared to covering an NBA locker room?
And that's where I'm at right now. I'm actually in Palm Springs. We have a fight coming up on Friday. And so what's today? Today's Thursday. So I'm going to host the weigh-ins. Yesterday was a press conference. Today's the weigh-in. As soon as I'm done with the weigh-in, I'm getting the car, go straight to LA. I work the Laker game. As soon as I'm done with the Laker game, come right back because we have the fight tomorrow. So what I do for Golden Boy, usually on a fight night, there's like 10 fights and they'll show the early ones. Like the first 5 will be streaming on YouTube and I do the play-by-play for those. And then sometimes I'll help out with the bigger broadcast. It depends on the show. So I do a bunch of different things. I'm one of the hosts, reporters, but a bunch of different things. Been doing that since 2014 with them. Worked for a lot of different companies and it's opened up so many great opportunities. I love the boxing world because every single person has a story. There's a Manny Robles who's a trainer who says, El deporte de los pobres. It's a poor man's sport. And you're literally fighting your way out of poverty. You're literally fighting your way to make your family better or make yourself better. And the boxing is great because you don't have to be a fan of the actual sport, but you could be a fan of the people. And every single fighter has a story of like how they got into it, how they train, have the discipline of what they have to go through to get where they're at. And then they have a fight and they're happy and they get like $5,000. And it's like, okay, this is great. Okay, but here's your taxes. It's just wow. So like you'll see the Mayweathers and the riches for all these other guys, but there's just so many guys that are just grinding every single day. And the South Bay has a big scene. There's a lot of good gyms in the South Bay, in Carson or San Pedro, the Hawthorne area. There's a lot of good gyms, a lot of good kids coming out of it, like the Compton area. So like there's a lot of great stories to be told, and it's just cool to see. But it's just being around it is a different rush, and every single sport is different and unique. And I love being around it, but there's something to be said for like the pageantry of like how a fight works and it breaks down, and like seeing a kid from his pro debut to like, whoa, he's a world champion. Like I've had that opportunity with a bunch of them, where you're like, oh yeah, I remember you when you were here, and now you, oh my god, like, damn, this is crazy. Like it'd be like kind of like, hey, I knew Tom Brady when he was in high school and he was a 6th round pick, and who is he now? And all of a sudden, bam. Or like Dave Canales, our good friend, who's the coach of the Carolina Panthers. You're like, Dave, I remember you when you were like barely trying to coach and you had no idea what you were doing, and now you're like coaching the NFL team. Like, what is this?
That's insane because you watch somebody from the bottom, started from the bottom, now we're here. So that grind, and I love that grind. I love the discussion about that grind.
Funny. Here's the world's combining. So Dave Canales, his family runs the Mission Ebenezer Church right on Carson off the 110 Main Street, Main Street. Where Torrance Boulevard. I'm sorry, where Alpine Village is or used to be, right? So on the other side, there's a church called Mission Ebenezer. And a few years ago, they used to have a gym in there called the Rock Boxing Gym, which is now just for kids. But years ago, they had a bunch of pros coming out of there, and it was like crazy how the amount of like Olympians and professionals. Like one day, I would go in there, like Sugar Ray Leonard's in there watching his nephew work out. You're like, what the heck is going on in here? So just things like that, and the world's combining, and it's like that. I'll text Dave about that every now and then. I'm like, hey man, you've always been a fighter.
That's interesting because I drive past that anytime I go to Carson, anytime I go to Banning, because I take Torrance Boulevard from where I live straight down, turn on to Main, and then depending on which way I have to go. But that's a very interesting South Bay plug right there.
Here, you keep it even more because I'm the mayor of Carson. I tell the mayor that too. So Reina Ale, who you've had on the show, the coach of Bishop Montgomery, her family is literally a block away from where my mom and dad live. So like the Ale family, I've known for everybody. So that's why I love watching your show, because it's all the people that are connected through one area. And it's like, I know the South Bay is a different bubble, right? Because you got the Redondo, the Hermosas and all that, but it extends out to Carson, and we claim it. So everybody in that area. So it's always like whenever you see somebody, like the other day when you had Kurt Suzuki on, like, okay, like Suzuki's in the South Bay. Like, it all comes back to us, man. That's always cool in that area.
His wife and I went to Bishop Montgomery together. That's how that connection got made. And they're frequent shoppers at the Trader Joe's that I work at in South Redondo. And so they would come in, and she goes, Nick, what do you think about having my husband on your show? And I kind of like,
you think?
Yeah, right. It was one of those, like, I can't begin to tell you how many times I've thought of that. But at the same time, I'm not beating down the door looking for him, It's different when it's somebody in his position, because I've been big league before where it's like, I don't know who you are, but we've had these conversations. We've talked about this. Like, no, man, I'm too big for you. Okay. I understand, but I'm still going to make the attempt at doing it, and there's people that I've asked who have kind of said like, no, thank you, but then there's people that are like, I'd love to, let's just make the time. So, and that's completely understandable. I understand that talking about you and talking about where you've come from, it's not something that you're comfortable with, but at the same time, there are people that want to know your story and know your grind and understand, what wakes you up in the morning and what keeps you going. So.
Yeah, it's fun. That's what it is.
Agreed. You've been around the LA sports scene long enough to see homegrown legends like Kobe Bryant, Clayton Kershaw, and a plethora of others. Have you ever been truly starstruck walking into an interview?
Okay, so Shelly Smith, who one of my mentors, she's fantastic. She always tells you, like, there's just people, Beto. They're not. I met her when I was answering the phones at ESPN Radio, and she's the one who told me, like, you could be on air. I was like, I don't want to be on air. I actually just wanted to be behind the scenes and just be happy being behind the scenes, produce. That's when I was working for the late Joe McDonald and Doug Krikorian. And I was like, and she was like, then one holiday, she's like, you should be on the air. Your opinion. I was like, no, I don't want to be on there. That ain't for me. No. But she always told me, she's like, they're people. Talk to them. That's it. And don't ever put anybody on a pedestal. I'm like, yeah. But the only time I was like, whoa, like legit whoa, was the first time I met Fernando was like, whoa. But then I ended up becoming like a good acquaintance with Fernando. So that kind of whatever. But like I was whoa, but I didn't tell him. And then the other time was the first time I saw Jerry West. I was like, oh, okay. Like having heard enough stories over the years, and this was like in the tunnel at Crypto, I'm like, or at Staples, and I was young. I'm like, oh, that man walked. Now this is where I get what they're saying. There's a presence. Like that man had a presence. Magic has that presence, but Magic is like that. Hey man, come over here. Like you heard, like you're my buddy. We can hang out here. We're like that's how Magic makes you feel. Magic makes you feel like you've been his friend forever. And Michael tells me all that stuff, and I see it all the time. Jerry had that distinguished class about it, where he's just walking by. You're like, yeah, I'm not gonna say anything to you, but I'm gonna tell people I was in your presence. Like that was it right there. But Fernando had the same thing about it. But Fernando was also got to know over the years, and people always have this story, and I always correct them. Like, oh, I met Fernando. He was a jerk about this, or he didn't. Like Fernando, and people who are close will say this, was very, very shy, and I didn't know that until later. The reason he kind of kept his glasses on, and I'm not saying he had like social anxiety or anything like that. I'm not doing that, but it was just I got to know over the years like he was very, very shy, very, very reserved, very, very private about things, and he understood he had to take pictures. So like people are like, "Hey, Fernando, you're my favorite," and he would just, okay, all right. Like Magic would have a conversation with you for 30 minutes about it, but Fernando was very, very reserved. So whenever he'd go on the field and he would talk, I would be talking to him. He's like, "Hey, stay here," and it was like because Fernando at Dodger Stadium, especially, would get mobbed. Like we at Dodger Stadium, you know how hard it is to go from the field up to the press box. You have to go in the escalator with the people. So Fernando walks by and there's no security with him or anything like that. This is like before the game, and he is gonna get mobbed every single time. So I had to be the bad guy a couple times, like, oh no, we're good, we keep on going, keep moving, keep moving, and like that's what it was because I think people had those kind of interactions with them where he was just very dismissive, but it wasn't he was being dismissive. It was just he was shy and like nervous about a lot of things, and I got to see that over the years. But Fernando still had that presence of like, damn, like every little Mexican kid wanted to wear 34 and become left-handed because of him.
Fernando Mania. All right, with social media, podcasts, and nonstop content now, how has the job of a sports journalist changed from when you first got started to where we are now?
You're a perfect example of it. You have to do everything. You have to be multi-platform. It's no longer the days of, hey, you're gonna do your show and that's it. You have to promote your show. You have to do this. You have to do that. Like everything is just like it's a non-stop cycle. And that's why there's so many people that get burned out in our business. And there's also you're working, yet you're not getting paid for it. And I'm not look, the reality is most of us don't make a lot of money in this business. I am an independent contractor, just like you. I get paid per event. Per event, I get paid. And if I don't work, I don't get paid. So how does the business change? You have to constantly be looking for the next job. The day of having a column and you write it and you leave, no, you have to come out there and you have to promote it. You have to put out snippets. You have to put an interview, whatever it is you have to do. It does not stop. And I'm not saying it would be woe is me for us, but you've done this and I've done this where we're at our kids' events and you're like sending a tweet to promote something that you did 8 hours ago because the news cycle freshens up and people, you want to bring it back to their attention. So it is a constant grind. Like if I could just, I go through these phases where I'm like, hey, I just want to delete my social media. I'm not going to, but it's just like, damn, it'd be nice to have a break every now and then. So the good thing with the Laker thing is I can just focus on just doing the Laker stuff because I have the ESPN machine behind me to promote what I'm doing. But for me, when I'm doing individual stuff, especially when I'm doing fights, it's like I have to do all that stuff. It's not that hard. I'm saying I have to, but it's just not many people, and not just us. That's every professional, lawyers, my friends who are in accounting, my friends who do tax, everybody who is. It's a constant. Our mind is always on, and it sucks.
Agreed. There was a friend of mine who said, Nick, you need a social media blackout. And I said, the funny thing is, if I do a blackout, I'm losing the steam that I've created. So there's only something, there's only so much you can take a break from.
That's why I gravitated toward TikTok because I saw what Perlman was doing and just telling stories. And one of my friends, another mentor of mine said, dude, why don't you do that with your stories? And I'm like, nah, it's going to look like I'm copying Perlman. He's like, no, you have personality. You bring a little different perspective to it. Just give a little something to it. So, just like the typical middle-aged man, I was thinking TikTok was for stupid dances, but it's not. And I'm like, let's go. And it's fun. That's where I give like the little advice and stuff like that and have fun with it. So it's cool, but it's also, if you don't do it, you're getting left behind. And like, there's been a lot of people in our business who did not want to adjust and they dinosaur out.
Or you could get Trader Joe's recipes off of TikTok too.
Oh my God. Believe me, Nick, every now and then I'm ready to call you and be like, yo, you guys got an opening? Because I need to get my teeth cleaned, man. Because I don't have health insurance. I have to pay for it myself. So the dental, you get on a little overnight shift or something. And that's not a joke. It's reality.
It is a reality. What's funny is DeMarco Farr said, man, I want to come in here. I want to break down pallets with you. I was like, yo, you're going to, I don't want you to get hurt, but that's not on me. I'd love to have you here.
Yeah.
But he also gave me a bear hug yesterday, and I was like, oh, you could lift me up like it's nothing, bro.
Oh, he's a monster. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a gentle giant.
Yeah. That's another thing I remember, because I have a lot of friends that are blue collar workers that are listening while I'm working. They're like, dude, that's all you do. You just get to pop off on the radio and do that. I'm like, bro, I know I'm not working physical. I'm not doing manual labor, but it's still kind of work, because like you could be entertained for 30 seconds. I got to be trying to be entertained for 3 hours, man. Like that's what I try to tell them. Like it's, I don't envy anybody who has a real job, because I've never had one, but that's why I appreciate every single day that I get to do this. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do it, but I appreciate the grind as long as possible.
Exactly. One day at a time. Thankful for where I've been, thankful for where I'm at. All right, when you're covering something big, whether it's a Lakers storyline, championship fight, how do you balance being first with being correct?
Okay, so, damn, I don't want to sound like the old man. Okay, I'm gonna be good here, because you get me fired up.
Beautiful.
This is gonna be a lot of credit to the journalism classes I had at El Camino College with Lori Medgovich and Jolene Combs, the late Jolene Combs. Old school, real reporters. The mentors I've had over the years, like Shelly Smith. Old school, real reporters who beat over your head. You cannot be wrong. You have to be right. Gustavo Arellano, a good friend of mine from the LA Times, and his thing is always like, don't get beat. And you won't get beat if you're constantly plugged in and know what you're doing with your job. Luckily for me, I don't have to do the breaking news stories or anything like that. But if I'm going to say something on the air, I better be 100% factual about what I'm saying. Like a lot of sports talk radio, we do a lot of speculation on things. I don't really like doing that, but I'm going to go to make sure that this is why you talk to everybody, Nick. You know this. Your best friend when you go to a high school isn't the coach. It's going to be the person who's the campus aide who has the keys, the person in charge of the parking lot, and they will tell you the real deal of what's going on. Like agents are going to use reporters to peddle their story, but the people around will tell you what's really going on. So how do you balance that? There's a lot of people who don't have proper journalism training. There's a lot of people who want the clicks. There are a lot of people who would rather be first instead of right. And that's just the way that I was brought up. Like I said, luckily I don't have to be like Shams or like Jeff Passan breaking news in that world. But you have to, it's your name. And when you're known as somebody who's just making up stories, then you're not going to have any kind of credibility. I'll just say this, for anybody who wants to get in the business, find really good mentors that have been around the block.
And that leads perfectly into my next question. When a young reporter, student, aspiring journalist comes to you asking how to break into the industry, what's the most honest advice you can give them?
I tell them, don't do it. Right away, I say, don't do it. And they're like, well, I'm a senior. I want to do what you do. And I was like, no, you don't. I'm like, why don't you just forget about it, bro? You're not going to do it. And I know I sound like a jerk when I say that. And I always temper it how they respond. And this is when I speak to classes. If I speak to somebody stranger who I really don't know, or somebody's parent, then it's like, hey, read as much as you can, know what's going on, really find like I give them the positive part of this for somebody who's different. But when I speak to journalism classes specifically, I'm gonna go with this one. I speak at Long Beach State every semester. Gary Metzger, Pulitzer Prize winning professor over there, and his class is sports reporting, upper division. Most of these kids are going to graduate, and they're like, "Well, how do I do that?" I'm like, "You're not. Don't do it. Don't do it." And the reason I do it is a test. If I tell you no, and you listen to me, then I'm saving you a lot of years. In our business, you're going to get rejected more than the athletes are. There's more professional players on a baseball team than there are reporters in that clubhouse. the odds are against you of making it. And if me telling you, it's too hard, you shouldn't do this, and you listen, you're like, yeah, you're right. Okay. Or on the flip side, if you do yeah, I know it's hard. Anyways, how do I get to what you're doing? Well, I know it's hard, but I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm like, oh, if I see that drive, like, here's my number. Let me help you out as much as you can. This is just my little test for those kids in the classroom. Now, if I'm speaking to, like, say, an intro to journalism class, different story. But I'm talking specifically to the kids who are about to graduate. And if I tell you no, and you listen, then I'm saving you time, because I get rejected all the damn time. I get replaced all the damn time because somebody finds somebody cheaper or younger, whatever it is. But that's what I was telling them. Don't ever let anybody tell you no. All you need is one person to be on your side and chase after it. That's my little soapbox there. But what I tell the other kids are, look, you, in this day and age, everything is available for you. You don't have to wait to find a job. You can create a job. You can become a podcaster. You can go create content on TikTok. You can create on YouTube. You can go and do that. Find your passion. So if you love IndyCar racing, jump into IndyCar racing. Don't go talking about hockey. Find the passion that you know. Find the niche that you really, really know, and get after it. Like, there's a kid who was at Long Beach State. His name is Bruce Coons, and he writes about Dodgers minor league system and transactions. I've read this person for a while. Then I go and find out he's a college junior. And I'm like, bro, I've been reading you since you were in high school on Twitter, because he has a good following, and all he does is write about Dodgers minor league action, and he has a huge following on that. I'm like, you're fantastic. And he's a junior, right? Find your lane and build it, because nobody's going to do it for you. Don't wait till, if you have an idea, do it today. It's simple as that. And if it doesn't work, oh well, throw things against the wall. That's the beauty about being young, is you can find different things. You don't have responsibilities. You don't have to worry about healthcare. You don't have to worry about kids. Just find your passion and then get after that.
Beautiful. Last serious question. Looking back on your career so far, what part of the job, reporting, relationships, storytelling, has meant the most to you?
Oh, wow. Okay. This is going to sound very corny, Pollyanna, and it doesn't go with my demeanor. Every day is great. And this goes back to when I say I'm living the dream. Every day is absolutely fantastic, because I've been able to cover amazing things. I've been to every single sporting event that I would possibly think of. The only thing I've never worked has been the Olympics, and we'll see about that. But my point is, every single day I get to say I'm living the dream, and every single day I get to wake up and do exactly what I want to do, what I dreamt about doing. There's a lot of friends that I came up with in this business who are no longer in it, and they wish they were. Or there are a lot of people who I went to school with and were like the hot shot thing, and then realized, I don't want to live in Idaho. I don't want to live in Montana. And they're going to go get a job and have they have the perfect life on Instagram, right? They got the big car, they got the big luxury house, and they have all that stuff, and they got stress, they got ulcers, and they're bald, and they're receding hairlines, all that good stuff, and they hate everything about their life, right? And they live vicariously through my Instagram. But this is where every single day is a blessing. Every single day is awesome. Every single day is fantastic. Whether I'm doing a high school game that 3 people are listening to, or I'm doing an NBA game with thousands of people listening to it. It's just every single moment that you're at, you have to enjoy it, you have to embrace it, and you have to treat it the exact same way.
I find myself tuning in before Laker games just to listen to you and Michael go back and forth, and then the occasional John Ireland. And I think there was one time, I think you guys were in Milwaukee, and you guys were doing a pregame, and Michael had these questions about
Yeah.
like how things align, and however he came up with these questions was hilarious. And your answers are so quick. You're like, no, I'm out. I don't got it. And John, I could just like hear his brain working, because I've met John Ireland once, and when I met him, he was so inviting and so, okay, cool. Who do you need? What do you need? But it's a lot of fun just listening to you and Michael, because I've been a Laker fan, of course, since Jordan retired the second time. So having listened to him, having grown through that phase with the Lakers, it's a lot of fun hearing a voice that I've seen on the sidelines at Carson games, at other games, and now, with the Lakers. So that's a lot of fun. Thank you for
Ireland
that.
is fantastic. He's a great guy. And then Michael, every game, every day, every show we do, he comes up with like a trivia game about something that's related to the opposite team, the city, or whatever it is. And most of the times I know the answers, but I like playing dumb at times just to get Michael's reaction of like, how do you not know that? I'm like, come on, Michael. So it's always fun.
Yeah, you can't know everything. That's the good thing. All right, we are transferring into rapid fire. Beto Durán, all-time favorite athletes as a fan.
Fernando, because the inspiration. Kobe, because of the work ethic that you would see day to day. And those two right there. And then I always tell Worthy that he's my favorite Laker just because I always loved James Worthy. And then just being able to work with him a couple of times was cool. And then, of course, Magic. I mean, I'm a kid of the 80s. So it's Fernando, Magic, and Worthy right there.
What's one of the most memorable games you've ever been to as a fan?
The 2010 Lakers NBA Finals Game 7 against the Celtics because they beat the Celtics. My media seat was in the very last row, section 333. I didn't care. I was in the building, and then being in the locker room afterwards was awesome. 2009 was great because they won in Orlando, and I was in Orlando. That was pretty cool to see. I would say just the Laker one because growing up as a Lakers Celtics kid, like in the 80s, and it was like, damn, I hate seeing the Celtics, right? So just any game 7 is awesome. I've been to, the Kings. I've been to the game 7. I've been to game 7s of the baseball, basketball, and hockey finals. So that's all been awesome.
I remember where I was that 2010 game 7, and I just remember whatever I was doing, it was not as important as what was on the TV. And, Ron Artest, Metta World Peace, having a huge game. And then you got Kobe coming up in the 4th. And that series, it was edge of your seat the entire series because after having lost to them, getting blown out by them in 2008, it was retribution at his finest and Kobe's signature moment as, yes, I can win without Shaq.
Yeah, 2008, I was in Boston, and this was before social media. So I remember at halftime, was it game 6, whatever it was in Boston, at halftime on the phone trying to change my flight because the service was so bad I couldn't get, so I was trying to change my flight at halftime when they were getting smoked in 2008.
All right, top 3 sports movies.
Top 3 sports movies. Ooh, all right. Baseball guys, I'm put Bull Durham no matter what. Golf guy, Caddyshack is fantastic. And then boxing guy, the original Rocky.
Rocky 1. There we go. Who plays Beto Durán in a biopic?
You told me that one. I couldn't figure anything out. But I'm going to go to my boy, Freddie Prinze Jr. I'm going to have him do it.
Your go-to...
Freddie used to train jiu-jitsu in a studio right there by El Camino College, right there by Alondra Park. He used to come down there and train there was a studio with the Gracies I used to go to. So I saw him there a couple times.
That's old school. Probably off Redondo Beach Boulevard.
Yep.
Yeah. Super old school. All right, let's go South Bay Eatery and your favorite dish there.
Okay. So you brought that up, and it's like, yeah, there's so many spots that you can go to, but Sugarfish in Manhattan Beach, you gotta love that, Nick's is always good. The Kettle's always good. There's a lot of good stuff in Hermosa, Redondo, but I'm gonna go stick to my roots. Diana's in Carson. Because there's nothing, and I don't have it that often. Every couple of years I'll do it, but just a craving. Just a big, fat, green, wet burrito at Diana's in Carson. It takes me back to being like at 3 a.m. when I shouldn't have been out, but I was there, and you just crush it. And it's on a plate, old school, and then the chips are just used to dip up the sauce. Oh, my goodness. That's when I was like, I haven't had it in a couple of years. There's no way I could finish it now. But a green wet burrito from Diana's in Carson is always hit the spot with horchata. Oh my gosh. And then, they call your name over the loudspeaker. And then it's always good when you have the police, the longshoremen, the businessmen, and a bunch of everything just hanging out. That's when you know you're at the right spot. But I'm not going to lie. One of my favorite spots, eateries, the Crest in Old Torrance. The wings at the Crest in Old Torrance when you're watching a Kings game, undefeated.
There we go. I remember I like going to Diana's in off of Pioneer. No, the one in it's like Cerritos. I went to Cerritos College.
Yeah, for 91. Yeah.
Yeah. I went there for a semester, and I would always like pick and choose where I was going to go to lunch. And I was like, no, I'm going to go to Diana's. This place is fire. So,
yeah.
Beto, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you. Look forward to always running into you. And anything I can do for you, please Let me know.
I'm glad to have done this, man. I was getting jealous that you weren't ever going to invite me because, like I said, when I saw Reina Ale, I'm like, come on, man. I've known Reina since she was in elementary. How's she on before me?
Twice. I had Reina on twice. You're
Yeah,
gonna have
she's
to run the LA.
fantastic.
You're gonna have to run the LA Marathon with her next.
I told her I'll get her a code, but yeah, we'll do that.
There we go. All right, Beto Durán, thank you very much.